Hi everyone and welcome for that last episode in the saga about the perfect tense where I'm going to talk about the verbs that I will either call just Vandertramp or Dr. and Mrs Vandertramp. So far in the previous video, part 1 and 2, I have explained the pattern for regular and irregular verbs. This applies for most of the verbs, to be honest. But that list of Dr. and Mrs Vandertramp, it's a list of 16 verbs that won't follow the normal pattern. So here they are. We call them Dr. and Mrs Vandertramp just because if you put them in that order, that's what they spell. Dr., Mrs, Van, de, Trump. It's just a way to memorize them, and that's it. Now, if you're getting started with the perfect tense and with the Vandertramp verbs, remembering 16 verbs just like that, first it's a bit useless, and second it will be tricky. So what I would suggest is that you start with the most common verbs. So there's 5 of them that you will encounter quite frequently. There's rester, to stay, aller, to go, which is really common, arriver, to arrive, partir, to leave, and sortir, to go out. So those are the 5 verbs that you should try and start using if you want to practice those verbs. So how are they different from the other verbs? I'm going back one sec to the regular ones. The difference, this will stay the same for them. But the difference will be here. We won't start with that. That means that we won't use the auxiliary to have anymore. There is a grammatical reason behind that, and God knows I love grammar, but it's so tricky, honestly, even I get slightly fed up with it, so I'm going to spare you the why. Just remember that this list of verbs will work differently. For those ones, those Vandertramp verbs, you will use the auxiliary être, meaning to be, in the present tense, and then your past participle as usual. So if I decompose a bit more the process, you still have your subject pronoun, I, you, he, she, etc. But then, instead of having to have in the present tense, you have once again the auxiliary to be. And then your past participle, and that will form the perfect tense here. But let's see bit by bit. So, let's say, for example, that you want to write, I have arrived. Literally in French, you won't say I have arrived, you will say I am arrived, which is, it doesn't sound awful in English, but for some verbs, the fact that you start with I am would sound dreadful. So stick to the translation with I have arrived or I arrived, but just bear in mind that once again, for those verbs, you use the verb to be. So I am, you are, he or she is, we are, you are plural, and they are. I forgot to put elle here, but obviously you can put it too. So that beginning is different. Good news, the past participle is still formed the same way. So for ER verbs, take off the ER, put an E accent instead. For IR verbs, take off the IR, put an I instead. And for RE verbs, take off the RE and put a U instead. This you should know by now if you're reaching that video. So if you want to say I went or I have gone, first example. Instead of saying I have, once again, you will say I am gone. And that would also translate in I went. Now, the verb to go is aller, which is an ER verb. So if you take off that ER and you put an E accent instead, it will give you je suis allé. There you go. So still that part, then that little rule, and you arrive here. The only slightly annoying bit about Vandertramp verbs is that there's one thing that you don't do with the regular pattern. It's that this past participle here needs to agree with the subject pronoun. So if a boy is saying, I went to the cinema, he will write it exactly like that and he will be done. If it's a girl saying, I went to the cinema, I is feminine because it's referring to a girl or to a woman, it doesn't matter. But if this is feminine, here you need to put an E at the end. So because we haven't established here if I is masculine or feminine, I'm putting the E between brackets, but obviously when you write a paragraph, figure out if you're a boy or a girl and agree that past participle accordingly. If I want to say you have left, to leave is partir, which is an IR verb. So you have, I will literally say you are left, which sounds completely wrong now, but if I take off that IR and put an I instead to say you left, that will give tu es parti. Now, once again, if you're talking to a boy, you leave it like that, but if you're talking to a girl, you will need to put an E here. For now, I put it between brackets. Next one, if you want to say she went down the stairs, for example. If you want to say, or she has gone down the stairs, you will literally say she is gone down. So she is elle est, and to go down is the verb descendre. So if you take off that re and put a u instead, that gives you that. But once again, we are talking about she here, so there's no brackets or anything. You need the E right away. One last example. If I say we went, it doesn't matter which one I pick, which we I pick, but I'm going to pick the first one. If I say we are gone or we went, or we have gone, literally in French, you have no choice. You say we are, and then once again, to go is the verb aller, er. Take off the er, put an e. But if it's we, it's plural. There's more than one person, so you put an s. And even better or worse, I don't know, but even if you're talking about a group of girls only, you will even have to put E before the S. So it will give aller, A, double L, E accent, E for the feminine, and S for the plural. So bear in mind that, once again, for the Vandertramp, first, you don't start like for regular verbs, and second, well, obviously you follow that rule, and second, you need to agree that bit, the past participle, with the subject pronoun, depending if it's feminine plural or feminine plural. There's a few more examples, but hopefully you will have understood the rule with the four first, so I'm not going to go into more detail for the ones at the bottom. Now, a bit of practice. I have an example here, an exercise here for you, and I'm going to do the first one with you. So if I want to say we have stayed or we stayed, you can check if you don't believe me, but the verb to stay is a Vandertramp verb. So as long as it's in that list, you know that you have to follow this rule. So we have stayed or we stay. I put between brackets that I want to use the pronoun on. The pronoun on is here. So we have, once again, you won't say we have in French, we say we are, that's it. And then rester is an er verb. So I follow my rule, take off the er and put an e accent. And once again, the last bit that you can't forget, we is plural. I haven't decided if it's masculine plural or feminine plural. Let's say it's masculine plural, so I don't need an E, but I absolutely need an S. So we stayed or we have stayed, on est resté with an S. Take a few seconds, or even better, pause the video and take a few minutes, and I'll mark that in 5 seconds. Okay, so I have arrived or I arrived. Once again, I have, literally it would be I am, so je suis. And then arrived, er verb, take off the er, put an e accent, then figure out if you're talking about a boy, you leave it like that. If you're a girl, don't put the brackets, just put the e. You have returned with tu, so you have is you are in French, so tu es, and retourner, er verb, take off that ER, put an E accent. I don't know here if I'm talking about to a girl or a boy, so I put that between brackets, but once again, make up your mind. She has gone out, or she went out. She, it's a girl, definitely, so I know at least that I'll have an E at the end. But you don't say she has, you say she is. So once again, when you have a doubt, go back to the rule, she is, elle est. And then take off the IR and put an I instead, but it's a girl, put an E too. We have entered or we entered with nous. So you don't say, once again, sorry I repeat myself, but teaching is about repetition. We are, nous sommes. Entrer, take off the R, the ER, sorry, put an E accent. If you're talking about a group of people, as long as there's one single guy in the group, it's masculine. But if there's only girls, it's feminine. So if it's only girls, ES. If it's boys and girls, S, which is what I'm going to do. You have fallen. So you are. Take off the ER. E accent. Once again, follow the rule for the plural. I assume it's only masculine and there's no, well, there's at least one boy, but you pick. And they have gone down or they went down. Literally, they are. And going down, take off the RE, put a U, and here it's masculine, so put a S. Now, you might think, okay, cool, I've got it sorted, I know my perfect tense. Sorry guys, there's a few irregulars, even if in that category of irregulars. Now, very quickly, because I have only 3 minutes, the only irregularity, it's only if you're confident with the Vandertramps, otherwise skip that. But those verbs here that I introduced at the beginning, they have an irregular past participle. Now, if you're starting, forget about that. If you're not starting and you're a bit more confident, just remember that venir, devenir, and revenir, well, they all are based on the same verb, and they all form their past participle with a venu at the end. If you want to say I am born, it's je suis né. And if you want to say, I don't know when you would say that, to be fair, but if you want to say I died or I am dead, you would say je suis mort or morte with an E. Once again, if you're not confident, don't go there yet. That can wait. But for the rest, the perfect is a really important tense, so please don't skip it. Practice it, especially since you will need it to form other perfect tenses in the future. Well, I hope that was all clear. Thanks a lot for watching, guys, and take care. Bye-bye.